Today, as we continue our study of John, we look at the very familiar passage of the feeding of the 5,000, beginning in John 6, 1 through 15. After this, Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. A huge crowd was following him, because they saw the signs that he was performing in healing the sick. Jesus went up to the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now, the Passover, a Jewish festival, was near. So when Jesus looked up and noticed a huge crowd coming toward him, he asked Philip, "Where will we buy bread so that these people can eat?" He asked this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. And Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread wouldn't be enough for each of them to have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass there, and so they sat down. The men numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, and after giving thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also with the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were full, he told his disciples, "Collect the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they collected them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces from the 5 barley loaves that were left over by those that had eaten. When the people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This truly is the prophet who is to come into the world." Therefore, when Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. The feeding of 5,000 shows up in all the Gospels. Unique to John, the Passover was near, and a small boy was the source of the loaves and fishes, and the bread was barley. Now, the barley bread is a really low-quality bread, and, we're not talking like Wonder Loaf sizes of loaves of bread here. This is probably something about the size of a small pita. Commonalities with Moses. Some people say that, this is to show that he is a modern Moses. Moses miraculously fed people, and they're kind of saying, okay, some people say that this is Jesus showing he is a modern Moses, a modern deliverer. Personally, I think it's a little bit inductive on that reasoning. What this miracle is not, well, there was a movement back in the late 1800s, and that movement really discredited most of Jesus' miracles. And what that movement said was that they had prearranged a stash of food in a cave, so Jesus just kind of stood there in front of the cave and they just brought the food out. What this miracle also is not is people sharing. Now, that's a nice concept, because a good Jew would not have traveled without food, because the rules were so strict about what they could eat and what they couldn't eat. It would be exceedingly rare for them to not travel, especially when they know they're going to Jerusalem for the Passover, for them to not travel without something to eat. And it's been suggested that really what this miracle was not multiplication of food so much as it was just getting people to share. I don't know. I have a little bit of a problem with that one too. What we see here is the compassion of Jesus, because Jesus takes the responsibility for feeding these people. He doesn't say, forget them, turn them away, send them on their way. Verse 5, when Jesus looked up, he noticed a huge crowd coming toward him, and he asked Philip, "Where will we buy bread so that these people can eat?" Notice that Jesus says, okay, let's feed them. It's our responsibility. Let's take care of them. But the next thought I want to cover happens in 6. He asked this to test him, Philip, for he himself knew what he was going to do. And the point that I want to make here is God is always pushing us. God is always pushing us. If we are genuinely seeking God, He is pushing us. He will challenge us to a deeper faith, to a deeper commitment, to greater knowledge of Him. He will always push us to be so that we may become more like Him. God will always push us. And here you see Him pushing Philip. Well, and Philip and the other disciples. Verse 7, Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread wouldn't be enough for each of them to have a little. And here's the second point I want to bring out. Philip is thinking God in a box here. Philip is not, he's thinking on human terms. And that's normal for us. We think in the physical realm because that's where we live. We live in what we can see, what we can feel, and what we can touch, and the things around us. And in Philip's defense, Jesus essentially baits him. He says, where will we buy food so that all these people can eat? He kind of puts him into the corner of we are going to buy food, that there is not another solution. So, in Philip's defense, Jesus kind of baits him. Does Jesus bait us sometimes? Does He bait us? Does He say, how are we going to fix this problem here? Maybe, I don't know. Really, when we get into problems, it's probably more of our own poor choices than it is God leading us into bad situations. I hear a lot of people say, God is testing me, God is testing me, when in reality it was that they made some poor choices. But regardless of that, we frequently end up looking at a crowd of 5,000, trying to figure out how we're going to feed them. And I can hear Jesus saying, how are you going to get out of this one? That's kind of what He's saying to the disciples. How are you going to get out of this? How are you going to solve this problem? Am I going to beat my head against the desk until it bleeds? Probably not a good solution, but that's what we often do. We often just sit there and try to do it on our own power, try to do it on our own force. We try and stick the round peg into the square hole. How about I'm going to pray my way out? Yeah, that's really what we should be doing. We should be getting on our knees. We should be praying our way out of these situations. See, God is trying to get the disciples to see more. He's trying to get them out of their box. He's trying to get them out of this mindset. He's trying to get them to see that God can do more. God can be bigger. He can do more. He is bigger. He's trying to get them to expand that mindset that they have. And He's always trying to get us to expand that mindset that we have. That, God can only go so far, or God can't solve this problem. No, God is trying to get us to expand that, to move beyond what the box we have put Him in. There's another part of this miracle that we need to look at. Beginning in verse 8, one of His disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to Him, "There's a boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many?" One of the things that's necessary for this miracle to occur is the gift of the barley loaves and the fish by the little boy. Once again, Andrew's thinking, once he's thinking in physical realm, he's thinking like a man. He's not thinking God in action. But how often is that what we say? I don't have anything to offer God. How often do we say, I've got some loaves and fishes, but what is that among so many? How often do we say that? How often do we look at the task and try and solve it in our own power, not looking to God for His strength? That's Moses' problem. Lord, I am slow of speech. But put those loaves and fishes in God's hands. It's nothing. It's nothing compared to what they need. But put it in God's hands, and God can do so much with it that there's leftovers. Take those loaves and fishes, take what little you have and put it in God's hands. It can change lives. It can feed a multitude. Yeah, but we've got to be willing to give it away. We've got to be willing to take that risk. The little boy has no idea what's going to happen. He thinks, I just gave away my lunch. He is willing to take this risk. Are we willing to take a risk to see God multiply it and turn it into something crazy amazing? Are we willing to take that risk of our little, or maybe even bigger than little, our loaves and our fishes, and take the risk that, you know what, we may go hungry. We may not get what we want. And we could take that and we can place it in God's hands and watch Him do a miracle. Are we willing to take that risk? We willing to not be so selfish, to hold it to ourselves? We have a choice. We can be part of God's work, and we can give away what little we have, what little time we have, what little talent we have, what little possessions we have. We can give that away, or we can hold it tight. We can clutch it to our chest. We can play it safe. We can eat our loaves and fishes and never see God at work. It's our choice. We're the ones that make it. Are you willing to give it up and watch God do a miracle?